that you know the stories making headlines, especially over the past day or two, the Annie Duwani trial, and of course that appeal that could go through in the Oscar Pistorius trial. Two very high-profile cases, not entirely sure if both of them can be clumped together as one, but we know a lot of people lamenting the fact that Mr. Shrian Duwani is already en route back home, some saying that the justice system has failed Annie Duwani. And then, of course, there are those who, even after Judge Thokozile Masipa has found Oscar Pistorius not guilty of murder, but rather of culpable homicide, some still crying foul and saying that that was a case of domestic abuse, even though the judge, as I have to stress, has found otherwise. That case, of course, still continuing. So it beggars the question, Minister, the justice system, does it fail those who are abused, especially the women?
Well, I must say that in these particular cases, as you correctly say, they're not the same. It's also the extent of what is it that needs to be put in place in making sure that at the end, justice is done to women. And I must say that having followed the case of Diwani, for instance, it's quite clear that the justice system is challenged. There are various issues which needs to be addressed. And one of the issues for me, which I think is key, we need to fast-track training as government, not just training for the sake of training, but training in a way that will make sure that it equip the civil servants in government to be effective in dealing with these issues, which then they'll be able to execute their responsibilities in a way that don't create legal vacuums. Because when you look at that space, there's a lot of gaps, there are a lot of challenges. So it's about how best do we make sure that justice is done to women. And people who have committed serious offenses like this, indeed, proper sentences is done in our country. So I think those are the issues which we've got to look at. And I must also say, where we are whilst we talk about transformation, transformation cannot just be about writing good laws, because we've got a lot of good laws. But the biggest challenge is that the implementation, is it effective? So those are some of the things we need to talk to in making sure that justice as a whole makes us to be satisfied as citizens of this country, because where we are, it creates bitterness, but also it makes women to lose hope on our systems. And I think one of the critical issues for us as government is to say how fast and how best do we make sure that within the justice cluster, they look at these issues and be able to advance and create a system which closes those gaps as we go through, because if we are unable to do that, it makes women to feel vulnerable, it makes victims to feel that there's no cause for them or a recourse in our country as a society. So our justice system indeed has to reflect on itself in making sure that our people do believe in ourselves or do believe in our justice system.
Because it can also make someone sit back and not report a case of violence against them, fearing secondary victimization, fearing going through the whole process only for it to be chucked out for a lack of evidence, which is a question that I think Pilelani is also asking in table number 6, closely related to that, wanting to find out whether or not there is a close relationship between your department or your particular sphere of influence and that of justice. Pilelani, you may ask your question.
Thank you. Minister, I would like to understand or to know if the government can create a system where there's an integrated system, because you would find, hopefully there's a police officer on my table, so it's good that we have a man of the law in this table, that when they go out there and arrest these people and they take them to court, but the court will say there's no conclusive evidence, and yet maybe somebody might have died and a woman might have been raped. So can you please try and have an integrated system where your department can also speak to the Department of Police and the Department of Justice, so that these people, they don't take advantage of the fact that if I am arrested and I can get a good advocate, I will be out, because this thing is really killing the society. Thank you.
Thank you, Pilelani. Minister?
I agree with Pilani. You know, he's so right. I think we do have an integrated approach, but I think the key for us is how effective it is. As you correctly say, do the police speak to the prosecution in a way that we can have a watertight case and we can see justice happening in our society. And one of our responsibilities as this ministry being created, it's also monitoring those kind of issues to say how best is the integrated system being effective. That's the role we'll be playing. We're not a department which is responsible for doing legislation, drafting legislation. It's to see how effective are these legislations. Hence, one of our roles is to do monitoring and evaluation of the effectiveness of our systems as government. And I must say, for me, the issue of justice cluster, it's a priority. Because if we're not going to fix it and make sure that they talk to each other in a way that brings justice to our society as a whole, we will continue to have demoralized people. We'll continue to have women who are unable to go and report to the police stations because whilst they've been victim of abuse, there's another, as you talk about secondary victimization, comes at the police station. The first front desk also contributes to this. So there's a lot which we need to do in changing the mindset, the training of the women and men who are involved in these particular areas to understand that they're rendering a service. It's not a favor for them to be in those positions. They're there to render a service to the country, to the communities. So that's the first point they need to understand, because sometimes they think that they're doing you a favor when you're a victim, and that needs to stop. It's a responsibility, it's an honor. They take an oath in terms of the Constitution by saying they're going to do their work. So they've got to do it diligently. But I think one of the key issues we as government, we've got to do within the JCPS cluster is to equip with the right tools, train our people at all times. There must be no gap or a point where we have, for instance, police officers who are not being trained. We must sharpen them, because society is becoming sophisticated. And when that happens, it also means they must be ready to deal with the complexity of the challenges they face on a daily basis.
Thank you so very much, Minister, and thank you so much. It's Pelelani, ne? You're such a true gentleman. He's not even correcting myself. I also said Pilani.
Yeah,
so thank you. I did. And he's such a true gentleman. He just, thought, let me not, interrupt the ladies. Let's proceed. Thank you so very much to you, and apologies. Let's go to table number 13. Steve Litseke. Steve wants to speak to us about a particular launch that took place and how other stakeholders can be incorporated. It's table number 13. Is it this side? If we can get a mic to Steve, please. And Steve is representing Access Chapter 2. He's the director thereof.
Thank you so much, Ayanda. I appreciate the minister's response. In fact, in 2012, the former deputy president launched the National Council Against Gender-Based Violence, which was led by the ministry, of course, in the previous administration. Minister, my question is that, and I think maybe before I even say my question, every 36 seconds in this country, a woman gets raped as we sit here. Every 3 minutes, a child gets raped. 1 in 9 women gets to report a case in police station. Now, when you say that there are platforms that are there that coordinates the response, the National Council Against Gender-Based Violence in this country became our space that we thought it's a multi-sectoral, not only within government, because right now what we hear is only government processes or plan or activation. When are we going to involve every stakeholder through the National Council that has been launched? When do we make use of the mechanisms that have been set up? Minister, I'm saying this because civil society have made a call to yourself in the past couple of weeks, in the past couple of months since you took office, and there has been very little response from yourself. Now I'm asking you, Minister, to commit, because we are sitting here, we are frustrated, there are people that are also outside. We have a petition that has been collected in the country and also globally to then say we demand national strategic plan against on gender-based violence. We want a society free of gender-based violence, not any lip service anymore.
Thank you. Just to clarify the issue of the council as I've been given a mandate, is that I must review all programs, the effectiveness of any program which is there. It's not going to help us to create structures every day, which at the end of the day are not working. We have so many proliferation of structures, right from 1994 to date. Have we ever done a review of their effectiveness? I think we're here today still talking about the extent of this violence in our society, because we create structures, but we never go back and see how effective are they. So there can be a demand of a council, but how different is it from what exists at different points, at different levels? So that's what we've got to relook at and say, what is it that we need that will be effective, but also that will involve everybody. We can make demands, but at the end of the day, how effective are we going to be? So the issue of the council is under review. I've said it, they know, and I'm still saying it is going to be under review. We are here to make sure we reach out to all corners of South Africa for us to be effective, because there are structures, whilst they say it's inclusive. I've had people who came to me, they were not part of it. They were not part of it. So how do we say then they demand what I'm trying to make sure we are a representative and a lead in government in pulling society as a whole? So I just want to say, I want to put it on record that we are looking at everything which exists. That is why today we are saying we are enough of 365 days. We need to look at this matter within the 365 days. But I also need to indicate, when I came in, whilst they call the council is a structure, there are no aims and objectives. The NSP itself doesn't exist. So we also have to, you can't put the horse before the cart. So the aims and objectives needs to inform us to say, as all of us coming together, these are the aims and objectives which then will move to the next stage of say, the kind of a structure to deal with this monster, which all of us agree to. This will be the nature of the structure we need. So I'm saying there are so many structures which are in existence, and it becomes important. I know that they can argue that it's various stakeholders, but it's not all of them. So we want to make sure we become effective. So we can't just add on because there's a call of a council. Let's look at the council. If we need a council, let's make sure when we sit here next year, we can measure the successes, but also we can say these are the gaps which are outstanding. Where I am, whilst they say they were launched in 2013, I don't have a report. I can't relate to it to say how successful it was. As I say, I've been approached by those who said, we are not included, we're excluded in this process. So if we have to be a successful country, let's all work together and being exclusive, because that's what I'm here for. So for them to say they've been calling on me, I've been meeting various of them. I mean, Sonke Justice, which is part of them, I've been meeting them. And I must say, for instance, when I met Sonke Justice, and we spoke about, for instance, mobilization of men, they wrote me a letter to say I must not deal with men. I must focus on women's rights. I don't want to say some of the things which I receive, and I don't go public on them. So I'm just saying, for me, I don't want us to enter that space. Let's work towards change. Let's work towards making sure we bring change in this country. We will be working with all NGOs. We will all define the space. We'll together define the space, but it can't be about a demand, because they can get it tomorrow. There are many, many challenges which are going to arise. We have to say, when we come up with whatever structure we need, make it effective. It must work. It can't just be another structure which we create when we come back next year, we are unable to account what is has achieved in society.
And that relationship with the NGO is very crucial, especially in your particular avenue there. It's very, very important to partner with the people who are on the ground. But as you say, it can't be done haphazardly. It must be coordinated, and integration, I think, is key. A number of organizations overlapping, some gaps also in some parts. So that integration is absolutely critical. But you touch on matters affecting men. I want to take a look at the holistic approach now. The preventative we mentioned, the empowerment of women, but a lot of men saying that in your focus on women, that perhaps the victimization of men is being sidelined. It's something that's always going to come up when we focus on women, Mother's Day, Women's Day, etc. It's something that always comes up. So I thought, let's give a voice to this gentleman, or Tutuzile Matobe. Tutuzile, you write like a doctor, do excuse me. Table number 8, Tutuzile wanting to find out about the role of drugs, and that's what I mean by holistic. Drugs and alcohol abuse when it comes to the scourge of violence, gangsterism when it comes to the scourge of violence. These are all contributing factors, but also we can't neglect the role of men, and perhaps men saying the more empowered women are, the less empowered or emasculated. They feel very emasculated or less powerful as men, and that can contribute. My apologies, Tutuzile, if you can please address us, ma'am.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to say that I'm so proud of our minister. I think we need a woman minister like her who will stand for the issues of women and who won't feel that kind of earthquake from any man. The challenge in this country is that it's not only that we are sidelined, we are actually marginalized as women. And this is creating a lot of problems because we are the mothers in the houses, we are the builders of the homes, and we are the ones who bring up children. I'm saying this because I run a project of a recovery center for boys, the youth up to 24 to 25 years. I am a woman. I've got so many boys who run away from home and who find themselves in the streets, at the robots or wherever, and who drop from schools because of drugs. I know that our society is so much affected by drugs. The violence that we have in the country definitely comes from drugs. Because when I talk to them, my boys, they say, mommy, at times when you've taken the stuff, when you're high, you don't see a woman, but you see something like a little baboon or a little lion. So when you attack someone, you're already seeing something else. So that's why these brutal killings and that's where it comes from. So we need to deal with drugs. It's also so important. I would like to say, I wish our minister can see how women are given opportunities. We as women, I believe, can correct this country. There's a lot that's not going right. And from our homes to the societies to the parliament itself, it just shows that there's something that has gone so wrong. We cannot have a country led by people who are fighting every day. And we as women are saying, this has got to be corrected for the sake of our children, so that we bring up children who will understand that we can deal with violence. Violence has taken over our country. I also mentioned the children who are in the streets. I don't know, the minister will maybe tell us, why are we having so many children and mothers begging in the street? And then, the issue of drugs. I so wish South Africa can take it so seriously. I've seen these boys, I've had them for 3 years. I remember the first time when a boy comes in, dirty, smelling and everything. I'm sorry to be saying this because I respect them and I love them so much. But that is the truth and the shame that we're facing as South Africans and the rejection that they get from their families. The rejection that they get from their families. I stay with these boys for the whole year. But when this time comes, like we closed last week, when now the parents are supposed to take over the responsibilities, it's shocking. Mm-hmm. It's shocking. It's like it's better when they are there. Mm. You know what, South Africa, we need to change. Something has got to be done. I say women must stand up. Let's show these men that we can do a better job. We are the ones who bring people on earth. We deliver each and every man and woman to this world. We can do a better job, I believe. Let us not be oppressed. I hate oppression. It's worse when it comes from a man. It's just not it. This country has got to change. That parliament has got to work.
Thank you so much. Your response, Minister?
No, thank you very much. I think one really welcome and commend you for the good job which you are doing in bringing the boy child on board and rehabilitating them, because it becomes very, very important. And I think the point you raised earlier on, how do we groom and socialize our children, becomes very key, because those are some of the issues. But as she's correctly saying, we have a serious problem as a country, the societal challenges which we face as women, the various pressures which we see. And indeed, women have to stand up. But also, you must not also forget that it's some of the women who abdicate their responsibilities for various reasons, leaving their children to end up being in the streets. And linked to that, as she's correctly saying, the issue of drugs, it's a problem. Big, big problem. She will not sort it out. We need an integrated approach again. The justice system must be there. Ourselves as communities must be there, because it's in our neighbors where these drugs are being sold. I mean, if you go to the townships, they call it Dick, it's there. In our own neighborhood, you find a man standing next to the gate selling to children at all times. So, normally we blame the police to say they're not there. But where is our role as society, as communities? Why are we not reporting some of the behaviors? Why are we allowing somebody to sit at my corner next to my house selling the drugs? So it's also a societal problem which we've got to address in making sure that we don't have these children who end up in the streets. And I would also say that whilst we talk about the empowerment of women, whilst I agree fully that women must, in any case, women always take responsibility. That's why we have decent husbands, decent men. It's because of us women in society, you know. That's our contribution to society as a whole. So I'm just saying that is why where we are, we've got to bring everybody on board in making sure that we move forward. We are able to create better children. Issues of socioeconomic challenges are a reality. We have to work together. But when it comes to drugs specifically and the issues of various shelters and rehabilitation offered, I know that the Department of Social Development has various programs which are in place dealing with those issues. I don't think they are enough. It also needs how best communities can start playing a role in making sure that your child is my child. Because if we can start doing that, when you see your neighbor's child not going to school, you must be concerned about that, because it leads to various challenges later in life. So we do need that caring, that coming together as society in making sure that as organizations, as individuals, we contribute towards creating better children.
What about the children at the traffic lights with the mothers there? Sometimes I worry they're playing so close to the edge of that little island there where the traffic light is. Is that a form of abuse? What do you do in that case?
Well, I must say that it is a sad situation, but also there's abuse in that space. We know, it's a fact, you go all over, you'll hear this, it's not me, that some of the people use kids to go and commercialize and raise money. It is an abuse, and I think as government, some of the things which we need to do, because it has nothing to do with poverty. And as we know, where we've seen a lot of these people escalating around the robots in our society, some have been brought from outside. It's trafficking. It's not just abuse locally. It's also about trafficking people to come here, trafficking children to come and beg for people to make money, and it leads to those kids being involved in drugs. So there are various aspects which contribute to that, and I believe that we must look at that because it's an abuse of children. It's making sure that it also creates stunt children who are not properly fed. Later, you sympathize because, they are poor. No, it's business. So we must address that too.
Is there any sort of legislation or bylaws that are going to look into that area specifically?
I think part of where we need to start is for the bylaws. They are there to be implemented. The bylaws must work, because you can't say you're going to create new legislation when the bylaws
Themselves.
through the municipalities. They must implement, in effect, the bylaws. But I also know that it's us again as communities, as society, who will start saying it's unfair, it's unfair. But bylaws must prevail, because we never bother to go and ask whose child is there playing at the robots. We don't ask where do they come from, but when the bylaws are implemented, then we cry foul. So the need, as society, as communities, we need to be balanced in our approach and understand what is it that is good in creating a society or a community which is respectful.
We're going to have to take a quick ad break. Minister, when we come back, we're going to go to table number 16. Georgina Sambane wants to ask about rural women. I think it's very important, especially when we look at the fact that violence against women and children is not always physical. It can be emotional, it can be financial. And then when you come to the urban setting, of course, there can be sexual harassment and the like. So we'll be speaking about all those issues and more when we return. Stay with us.